Hello guys, sorry for delay, but there is no means of delay because I'm uploading the recording whenever I want. So without wasting more time, let move forward. Okay. So the today's topic is the 1% rule. Why a few people get most of the rewards. Sometimes in late 1800s, nobody is quite sure exactly when a man named Wilfredo Pareto was fussing about in his garden when he made a small but interesting discovery. Pareto noticed that a tiny number of peas ponds in his garden produced the majority of peas. Now, Pareto was a very mathematical fellow. He worked as an economist, and one of his lasting legacies was turning economics into a science rooted in hard number and facts. Unlike many economists of the time, Pareto's papers and books were filled with equations, and the peas in his garden had set his mathematical brain in motion. What if this unequal distribution was present in others' area of lives as well? The Pareto principle. At the time, Pareto was studying wealth in various nations. As he was Italian, he began by analyzing the distribution of wealth in Italy. To his surprise, he discovered the approximately 80% of the land in Italy was owned by just 20% of the people, similar to the peas ponds in his garden. Most of the resources were controlled by a minority of the players. Pareto continued his analysis in other nations and a pattern began to emerge. For instance, after pouring thought the British income tax records, he noticed that approximately 30% of the population in Great Britain earned about 70% of the total income. As he continued researching, Pareto found that the numbers were never quite the same, but the trend was remarkably consistent. The majority of rewards always seemed to accrue to a small percentage of people. This idea that a small number of things account for the majority of the results became known as Pareto principle, or more commonly the 80-20 rule. Inequality everywhere. In the decades that followed, Pareto work practically became gospel for economists. Once he opened the world's eye to this idea, people started seeing it everywhere, and the 80-20 rule is more prevalent now than ever before. For example, thought the 2015-16 season in the National Basketball Association, 20% of franchises have won 75.3% of championships. Furthermore, just two franchises, the Boston Celtics and the Los Angeles Lakers, have won nearly half of all the championships in NBA history. Like Pareto's Peapods, a few teams account for the majority of the rewards. The numbers are even more extreme in soccer. While 77 different nations have competed in the World Cup, just three countries, Brazil, Germany, and Italy, have won 13 of the first 20 World Cup tournaments. Examples of the Pareto principle exist in everything from real estate to income inequality to tech startups. In 1950s, 3% of Guatemalans owned 70% of the islands in Guatemala. In 2013, 8.4% of the world population controlled 83.3% of world health. In 2015, one search engine, Google, received 64% of search queries. Why does this happen? Why do few people, teams, and organizations enjoy the bulk of the rewards in life? To answer this question, let's consider an example from nature. The power of accumulative advantage. The Amazon rainforest is one of the most diverse ecosystems on Earth. Scientists have catalogued approximately 16,000 different tree species in Amazon. But despite this remarkable level of diversity, researchers have discovered that there are approximately 227 hyper-dominant tree species that make up nearly half of the rainforest. Just 1.4% of tree species accounting for 50% of the trees in the Amazon. But why? Imagine two plants are growing side by side. Each day they will compete for sunlight and soil. If one plant can grow just a little bit faster than the other, then it can stretch taller, catch more sunlight, and soak up more rain. The next day, this addition energy allows the plant to grow even more. This pattern continues until the strongest plant crowds the other out and takes the lion's share of sunlight, soil, and nutrients. From this advantageous position, the winning plant has a better ability to spread seeds and reproduce, which gives the species an even bigger footprint in the next generation. This process gets repeated again and again until the plants that are slightly better than the competition dominate the entire forest. Scientists refer to this effect as a cumulative advantage. What begins as a small advantage gets bigger over time. One plant only needs a sunlight edge in the beginning to crowd out the competition and take over the entire forest. Winner take all effects. Something similar happens in our lives. Like plant is in the rainforest, humans are often competing for the same resources. Politicians compete for the same votes. Authors compete for the same spot at the top of the bestseller list. Athletes compete for the same gold medal. Companies compete for the same potential client. Television shows compete for the same hour of your attention. The difference between these options can be razor thin, but the winners enjoy massively outside rewards. Imagine two women swimming in the Olympics. One of them might be 1/100th of a second faster than the other, but she get all the gold medal. 10 companies might pitch a potential client, but only one of them will win the project. You only need to be a little bit better than the competitor to secure all of the rewards. Or perhaps you are applying for a new job. 200 candidates might compete for the same role, but being just slightly better than the other candidate earns you entire positions. Situation in which small differences in performance lead to outside rewards are known as winner take all effects. This situation in which small differences in performance lead to outside rewards is known as winner take all effects. They typically occur in situations that involves relative comparison where your performance relative to those around you in determining factor is your success. Not everything in life is a winner take all competition, but nearly every area of life is at least partially affected by limited resources. Any decision that involves using a limited resource like time, money will naturally result in a winning take all situations. In situations like these, being just a little bit better than the competitors can lead to outside rewards because the winner takes all. You only won by 1% or 1 second or $1, but you capture 100% of the victory. The advantage of being a little bit better is not a little bit more reward, but the entire reward. The winner get 1 and the rest get 0. Winner take all lead to winner take most. Winner take all effects in individual competitions can lead to winner take most effect in the larger game of life. From this position, advantageous from this advantageous position, win the gold medal in hand or with cash in bank or from the chair of Oval Office, The winner being the process of accumulating advantage that makes it easier for them to win the next time around. What began as a small margin is starting to trend towards the 80-20 rule. If one road is slightly more convenient than the other, then more people travel down it, and more businesses are likely to build alongside it. As more business are built, people have additional reasons for using the road, and so get its even more traffic. Soon you end up with the saying like 20% of the roads receive 80% of the traffic. If one business has a technology that is more innovative than other, then more people will buy their products. As the business makes more money, they can invest. In addition, technology pays higher salaries and hire better people. But the time the competition catches up, there are other reasons for customers to stick with the first business. Soon one company dominates the industry. If one author hits the bestseller list, then publishers will be more interested in their next book. When the second book comes out, the publisher will put more resources and marketing power behind it, which makes it easier to hit the bestseller list for a second time. Soon you begin to understand why a few books sell millions of copies while the majority struggle to sell a few thousand copies. The margin between good and great is narrower than it seems. What begins as a slight edge over the competition compounds with each additional contest. The margin between good and great is narrower than it seems. What began as a slight edge over the competition compound with each additional cost. Winning one competition improves your odds of winning the next. Each additional cycle further cements the status of those at the top. Over time, those that are slightly better end up with the majority of the rewards. Those that are slightly worse end up with the next to nothing. This idea is sometimes referred to as the Matthew effects, which reference a passage in the Bible that says, "For all those who have more will be given, and they will have an abundance, but from those who have nothing, even what they have will be taken away." Now, let's come back to the question I posed near the beginning of this article. Why do a few people, teams, and organizations enjoy the bulk of the rewards in life? The 1% rule. Small differences in performance can lead to very unequal distributions when repeated over time. This is yet another reason why habits are so important. The people and the organization can do the right things more consistently and more likely to maintain a slight edge and accumulate disproportionate rewards over time. You only need to be slightly better than your competition. But if you are unable to maintain a slight edge today and tomorrow and the day after that, then you can repeat the process of winning by just a little bit over and over again. And thanks to winner take all effects, each winner delivers outsized rewards. We can call this the 1% rule. The 1% rule states that over time the majority of the rewards is given field will accumulate to the people, teams, and organizations that maintain a 1% advantage over the alternatives. You do not need to be twice as good to get twice the results. You just need to be slightly better. The 1% rule is not merely a reference to the fact that small differences accumulate into the significant advantages, but also to the idea that those who are 1% better rule their respective fields and industries. Thus, the process of accumulative advantage is hidden engine that drives the 80-20 rule. Thank you.